Hello, welcome to Boards on a Tray, the Why God Why gaming podcast. I'm Tony Chandler, and we're recording this tonight on Thursday, the 1st of March, 2018. With me tonight, Simon Allen. Hi, Simon.
Hello, Tony, and how are you doing today?
I'm okay. I just thought I'd change up the intro a little bit there. Just big us up a little bit.
Quite. That was very funny. It's been snowing where you are, I assume?
It has, yeah. It's chaos. You know what British people are like. They can't stop talking about snow.
Oh, yeah. It's exciting, but I'm really enjoying it because I obviously in this cottage in the middle of the forest, and I just kind of worked from home, and I'll work from home tomorrow as well. And I'm just kind of in this idyllic area. I made sure I've got enough food for 48 hours. I can't get the car out. It's going to be really difficult in the next sort of 3 or 4 days, actually. So I might have to walk about an hour each way to get food, but that's fine. But it's just, I feel really cozy. I feel really like content and happy with it, whereas it's been chaos for a lot of people. Yeah.
I have to say, it seems to suit you, right? Because you can't see Simon, but he's got the full mountain man beard going on already after only like 2 days of snow. Quite a lot of beard going on there. And a big woolly jumper. He literally looks like someone like Bear Grylls living in the woods. Have you sort of gone mad yet and started trying to kill hitchhikers that come by yet? Or is that your plan? Is that your plan for the weekend?
Is that what Bear Grylls does? Jesus, what a monster!
When you did just describe the plot of a horror movie. You're on your own, working in the middle of nowhere in the forest. You're snowed in, so you can't escape.
Yeah, I suppose I would be the one to fear, wouldn't I? In a setup for a movie, there's no way to introduce, even if I was one of the kids, even if I was one of the group of friends who went out to the cabin, I would still, you'd expect me to turn, like I would go onto the side of the evil maniac or something. You would, if I was in a trailer, you wouldn't have me down as the hero at the end.
Well, I was going to say, you got a couple of things.
Sorry.
Well, no, you wouldn't get killed immediately. So you got a couple of things in your favour. You're not female. We've never seen you naked, and you're not black. So those are 3 things which pretty much gets you killed off very early in a horror movie.
I've been inverse profiled, haven't I? So what I've been taking advantage of the snow. I poured a whiskey and I went out and got some snow off the hood of my car and put that into the whiskey because I didn't have any ice, and it made a slush puppy snow cone thing, which is dripping water all over my Macintosh computer.
Just looking at it, it actually looks pretty disgusing. Like if you ever tried to make gravy and got it wrong, it sort of looks a bit like that.
It does look like kind of rendered chicken fat, yeah.
Well, I better introduce our special guest. Our guest tonight is Kat. Hi, Kat.
Hello. It's weird because I was waiting to talk, and it's like you don't have permission as a guest to talk until you've been introduced. No, so I was all ready because I knew that Simon would be the character in like a teen slasher who maybe gets it on with like the hot girl, and you think, oh, I hope they make it, I hope they survive, and then it turns out that he's actually the killer.
It's not even me that's the killer. It's the raft of diseases that I carry in my bloodstream.
It's like a STD serial
cautionary tale. It's not even like a metaphor at that point. It's just it becomes a government warning. Yeah, thanks for saying I would hook up with some girl in a horror movie. That's really sweet. That's actually a really sweet thing for someone to say. I was thinking I'd be the kind of nerdy guy who gets killed in a humiliating way, maybe. Quite a humiliating way.
Whilst having a shit.
Well, no, it might be like a pity lay, like in films where the girl's just really scared and she's like, we could die at any moment, you'll do. Like
last man on earth.
You've just taken it away from him, haven't you?
Yeah, what the cat gives with one hand, she taketh away with the other.
I have to just keep that ego in check, that's all.
That's unfortunate, isn't it?
Morose, the mountain man, sipped from his chicken fat slush puppy.
So how are things down your way, Kat? Are you being affected by the weather much? I know you don't drive, so you're probably hating it less than most other people.
Yeah, we didn't have any for ages. Like all of online was like, woo, snow, like, and sometimes it depends on my mood. Sometimes I'm like, shut the fuck up, it's just snow, it's still winter, we get snow sometimes. But this year I've been chill and I've been like, people are having fun, like I'm telling people their pictures look pretty and all that. But the whole time I've been like popping in and out, going into like Boscombe shopping, and it's just sunny and blue skies. I'm like, where's our snow? And I did a tweet.
Oh.
And I did a tweet about it yesterday, being like, everywhere else in England excited about snow. Meanwhile, in Bournemouth, and then like just a GIF or GIF, whatever, of palm trees by the beach, because that's what it like felt like here. And then immediately it starts snowing. But it's raining now.
So what?
I'm raging about the snow. I fucking hate the snow. And I hate people who are like old enough to know better being excited about snow. Fair enough if you're a kid. But if you're an adult, snowmen suck ass.
I want to, if it's going to snow, it should snow enough that I can at least have fun and make some memories with my girls, because they're knocking on a bit now. Like, Mina.
Knocking on a bit. One's 48.
Mina, actually, earlier, she was like, is it okay if I just go and stand outside the porch? Because this might be my last time as a child experiencing snow. And I'm like,
oh my God.
Let me get a photo. Now that she's 16. Yeah.
The second you turn 17, it's all whiskey snow cones. There's no innocence to it
Don't
anymore.
give her ideas. She's not allowed to listen to this podcast.
Right, that is good advice. I can tell you're a good parent. I must write that down for things to tell my daughter.
Second you tick over to 17 or 18, it's getting up at 1:30, staggering out in bare feet to the hood of your affordable hatchback, desperately clawing at the last few snowflakes, jamming them with your gums, in the vague hope that a maniac will come and kill you or give you a pity lay, maybe.
I just think of when my daughter's old enough to sort of say, what does Daddy do on Wednesday nights, Mummy? I hope she'll like lie and say like, he goes to a strip club or something. Just cover up the embarrassing truth.
He's making porn, darling.
Yeah.
It's oral porn. No, wait, that sounded wrong. That's AURAL.
Oral porn. So, Kat, you live down by the coast. What?
Yeah.
Well, I've never been at the beach when it snows. So, does the entire ocean freeze, or does that keep going? Like, how does it work?
There was a picture of somewhere down the coast yesterday that was doing the rounds where some of the waves had frozen. So the sea was doing its thing behind this like frozen wave, which looked quite cool. Whenever it's like, it doesn't tend to snow much here. Like even now, everyone else is like, oh, we've got 20 centimeters, and we're like a few millimeters.
And those people exaggerate a lot. Yeah, we had 6 inches, and you're like, that's like an inch, mate. It's just like being in the bedroom.
Yes, it sounds like it.
I was joking about the ocean freezing over, but you just described, that's blown my mind.
But
Yeah,
you've seen the crazy thing is when you see pictures of cars parked along the seafront on a really windy, cold day, because all the water sprays up and it freezes and like sticks to the cars, and you just see these cars that turn into like ice blocks. They're just covered in icicles, and you can't even get the doors open. They're just absolutely frozen solid.
Well, the beach is really exciting and interesting.
What, the movie?
No.
No. Yeah, no one ever said that. No one ever said that.
It's actually a decent movie, The Beach. I haven't seen that for a long time.
I think it did well. It feels very 90s now. Even just thinking about it makes me think about like, I don't know, like Avatar and The Matrix and being a twat. All Saints, yeah, that kind of thing.
Avatar?
Avatar?
What are you talking about?
Avatar feels like a 90s thing to me. Like it was so cheesy and shit. It had to be 90s.
Oh, no. Avatar was a great movie.
Really? Oh, yeah, but you're a nerd. I forgot about that.
Avatar was a good movie, but it was like 2008, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It wasn't a good movie. It was a movie for nerds with blue women with blue tits.
Got to have like cool tentacle
Ornithologists, weren't
legs.
Yes.
I don't know. I just found it kind of cheesy. It was, everyone raved about it, and I was like, really? This is all right. It was, a good spectacle. I'll give you that. But
Yeah,
I don't know. I
remember
just
it looking good. Because I saw it like 2 or 3 times at the cinema.
It looked great.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
And I have a thing for a girl with a tail, so Fuck off. Leave me alone.
Well, there we go. Now we know where that came from. That's another thing on the.
That's another thing the innocence has been stripped from.
That's why producer John's banned from the Monkey Sanctuary as well.
He's actually quite deviant. It's always like the nice, quiet ones that turn out to be like.
Normally when you go to the Monkey Sanctuary, it's the monkey inside the cage that's there casually wanking. But
these unattainable standards of beauty that he puts on women. Like, you don't have a tail, so.
Well, Kat, but Kat, you used your avatar.
You do technically have a tail.
Yeah, but Kat, your avatar, and you've changed it now to the Halloween girlie with the flowers and what's left of her hair. Your avatar used to be a girl with
on Skype.
Yes.
Yeah, the little cat girl with the
fluffy ears and the tail. That works.
So it's only when you found out about that you changed it, was it?
It may just be me.
No, it's still that on Skype. It's you that changed it. We
changed
away
method.
From our little furry.
We did.
He's the best middle of the road gaming podcast producer out there. But he's also what you would call a sexual risk.
Hang on. Middle of the road. I'd say this podcast is so far from the road we don't even know where the road is anymore.
I was being kind to us. I apologise for that.
To actual middle of the road gaming podcasts, we couldn't hope to attain those levels of normality.
In the gutter podcast.
That's the only bit of the road we would be considered to be anywhere close to. That's has to be said. Oh man, I am just getting closer and closer to having a baby of my own. I'm terrified about that. I know I brought it up. I don't have a lot to say about it, but I'm
just scared.
Holy shit.
That was such a non sequitur that it really, really must be playing on your mind.
Yeah, it's like, oh God.
It is. I don't know. I was thinking, is there anything interesting I can say about it? And then I'm like, no, I'm just shitting my pants.
That had the cadence of a man in the middle of a conversation just going, yeah, that's really interesting. So I'm getting fired out of a cannon tomorrow.
That's how I feel about it, yeah. I mean, it's not me getting fired out of the cannon, and it is more the wife, honestly. I mean, I'm just the guy with the net, like trying to catch the person that's been fired out of the cannon, which is equally sort of dodgy and quite a lot of responsibility, really. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with it. I just how does it work? I've been to all these courses and they still haven't told me how to change a nappy or which way up the baby goes.
I'd never changed a nappy. Having Mina was the first time I'd ever changed a nappy.
So, why would you? I mean, you're not going around to a friend and go, let me do that for you. I mean,
I'll check.
Baby stuff. Maybe they didn't hear children.
Yeah, well, Tony would never have been a sort of babysitter you'd have. Neither would I. But
let's face it, in this podcast, I would probably be number 3 of 4, with John being 4 for obvious reasons.
What? I've changed nappies. I think if you have young children in your family, then you end up changing them. But yeah, if it's just friends that have had the kids, it's a bit unusual that you'd have to change the nappy. You've
changed the nappy then, son. I'm really surprised to hear that. Literally, you're one up on me there, and you're not any babies on the way or anything.
We had a young family. A glut of cousins were born when I was sort of mid to late teens, so I ended up having to look after them occasionally. They seem to have turned out okay.
I think he's just making it up as he goes along, and it's just his nappy. He does the adult baby thing.
Well, that as well. Yeah.
I'm beginning to wonder if there are any sexual fetishes that aren't going to get mentioned on this podcast at some point.
That's I've got this list here, and I'm just slowly ticking off my bingo.
We've had adult babies. We've had diapers there. We had sploshing was mentioned before. What else do we have? Oh, furries just now.
Yeah.
What else is there? Kat, you're the expert on fetishes. What else have we missed?
Oh, balloons. That's always a fun one.
Balloons.
I mean, yeah. People that are really into just squidging them and just touching them and that squeak and women maybe bouncing gently on them. And,
I do like a woman bouncing gently on it, but
this reminds me, I'm ditching Kat's questions and I'm just going to do a fetish of the month when I come up.
But do we
somehow tie it into video games? Do we balloons in Stardew Valley?
Do we think that if you're into women, if women are your bag, do we think that a woman bouncing gently on anything is potentially quite nice? It doesn't have to be
Well,
balloons, does it?
There is
It
something
depends
to be
what you're
said for that.
staring at. Are you staring at the woman or the balloon?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've put that to bed. I swear.
For some reason, I'm just thinking of there's a Monty Python bit in one of the movies, The Meaning of Life, I think, where the guy's been allowed to choose the manner of his own death, and he's being chased by topless women running after him in elbow pads and knee pads and bikini bottoms, and they're just running after him, and it's all in slow motion. It's just the most gratuitous thing ever, and also quite hilarious. So he gets chased off a cliff by all these topless women. I think if I had to go, it would be something like that. It's far more likely to be having my spleen eaten by Simon in some sort of, middle of nowhere log cabin, though, isn't it?
There are worse. There are worse things.
That's a very likely end for you. Much more likely than you might expect.
He's got the chicken fat to cook it with.
Hang on, when Simon called me earlier, the call was coming from inside the house.
He's in the house, but he's fallen over.
He's found the whiskey, so it's okay.
I almost fell over when I came back in after the second run. It took a couple of runs to get the enough snow to kind of reach an equilibrium of temperatures, which we covered, I think, just before we went on air. And on the way back in, I'd made the floor quite wet. And as I came back in, I almost fell over on three separate occasions in about a 1.5 second period. But I was fine. It's ice is. I think if you've got any kind of mobility disability, or you haven't got a job where you've got a job where you have to go in, you can't work from home, and it's treacherous. Snow's a bit of a stressful time, I think. But for me, being relatively able-bodied and being able to work from home, I love it. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I can't work from home at all. I have to go into the office. But that said, I'm looking at tomorrow and thinking, do you know what? I just might not bother and take a day off, because it looks like it's going to be a load of hassle getting there, and I'm not really sure it's worth the effort, because, half the time you're useless when you're there anyway. So good thing about going in on a day when the snow's bad is all you do is sit around looking out the window and going, I wonder if it's going to snow. I wonder if we'll get out. I wonder if we get out. I wonder if we get out. And looking at your phone for weather. And the most popular game at the moment in the office is Choose Your Weather app. Everyone's just cycling between weather apps, trying to find the one they like the look of the best. Oh, I don't like the look of BBC. Or what about Weather Channel? That's not bad. Yahoo? Yeah, not too bad. Just till you find one you like the look of.
Like Apple Weather, that's my one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that all the porn? The fetishes? We've done enough fetishes.
Yeah, covered most of them. I need to get another whiskey in a minute.
Got to keep Simon ticking along, otherwise he will fall off the edge. And that new mountain man look of his doesn't go with being sober.
Do you think? Yeah. So I wore this top. Let's not talk about my top. Go on, John.
Okay. I was actually going to start to talk about video games. Is that all right?
No, I want to hear about Simon's top. Why did you wear the top, Simon? Sorry.
Well, it's one of these ones where I was on ASOS, and I go on ASOS a lot because it's got pictures of people on there, and it makes me feel a bit less lonely. Well-dressed people. I don't like watching TV to feel less lonely, because people move around and the shots change, and one second you're looking at a person, the next minute they're gone, and it sort of puts me off a bit. When I'm on ASOS, I can look at the people for as long as I want.
Have you considered buying The Sims?
They won't let me. So this sometimes happens when I'm buying clothes. I'll see like a mannequin or somebody on a website wearing the item of clothing, and I'll think, blimey, that looks trendy. I should get that, and that could be part of my new look. And then when I get it and put it on, I think, oh no, I forgot I wasn't young and attractive. I can't wear this item of clothing. So this is a big cozy roll neck that a fisherman or Norwegian fisherman might wear underneath a really warm Mac.
This is a compliment.
With trousers.
This is a compliment, but when you see those pictures and they're like, this tortoise is 105 years old, and they've got that wisdom in there.
How is this a compliment?
But that kind of like wise, rugged, like they know things, they've seen things. That's the really cute look you have going on. It's a compliment.
No, I think the Norwegian fisherman look is good actually. I do think it suits you, Simon.
I do genuinely like. Yeah.
I wasn't mocking you. You just look quite different today with your beard and your jumper. So you just look fairly different to how you normally look, and it's a different look, but you are pulling it off. You're mastering it.
I didn't think you could see that. Can we talk about video games now? I don't feel okay.
You feel violated by the tortoise comment. I have an amazing tortoise photo that, if I remember, I will send to producer John, and he can attach it to the post for this. Make a note of that, John, and remind me. I will forget.
Is it?
I just realised. I just hang on, like, bzzzt. Mr. Brown, would you mind stepping in here for a moment? Take a note. That's it. Yeah. Take a note. Remind me about the tortoise photograph. Thank you, John.
Why does John have to write it down? I don't understand.
He's my secretary.
Can I get him to do stuff?
Yeah. So the thing is, what nobody realizes is that there's actually some effort. I have a notebook here. See, this is my notebook.
John makes a lot of effort. That's true. John
all of those notes in there are all of the notes from all of the episodes on all of the podcasts.
Are you joking? Wow, we should like auction that.
Those are just satanic symbols.
Yes, that's what I said. All of the notes from all of the episodes.
Why does it say, what the fuck is that? Are they going on about now a lot?
It does say that. There's lots of WTFs. Yeah. But it's one of those, I occasionally make notes about clips that I'm going to take, because we have the clips like
oh no,
there you go.
This is like that time I saw his penis,
like that one. So
yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
So there's some. I just make notes. So here there's one, for example, episode 306, which started Simon's dinner bolognese with vegetables, and it was a Victor one, and Victor got the horn at 36 minutes 25 seconds. He also espoused at 40 minutes 55 seconds. Killing is fun. So this is what I go back through at the end of the series and clip them all out for the special show, which never happens. But yeah, so
I am terrified to imagine what is written down in there that I have said over all the years that I open my mouth without engaging my brain on this podcast, which is 99% of the material of the podcast.
So, there you go. Sorry, that was probably far too spurious and irrelevant.
No, I think I like to take people behind the fourth wall, and there's John, manipulating the cogs and levers.
Yeah,
it's nice to see behind the curtains.
Yeah, that was. I'm scared now to know that there is a book now.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose the entire sort of, body of evidence or the podcast as we know it is already out there, but the book somehow seems more incriminating.
Yeah, because the book will be there for generations.
Yeah, it will be. So it'll go into the annals. It's not
the book might include things that were so bad that John even cut them out of this podcast.
Yes. Yes.
It might even include the bits deliberately saying cut this out.
All going back. So episode 107. Simon Allen, in quotes, cold dead eyes. I have no idea what that means.
I remember Simon saying something about cold dead eyes. I do actually remember that expression, weirdly.
It's all in here. It's all in there. Anyway, sorry, carry on. Or I'll carry on. Oh, somebody carry on.
Yes, so Simon, you wanted to talk about video games, just for a change.
Yeah, I've played loads of video games recently. So I'll go from the top. I'll briefly mention Monument Valley, which you recommended to me. I played that a long time ago, actually, when I was getting the train back from London, standing there and without a seat, because it was one of those British trains, so I didn't have a seat.
At least there was a train, so it makes a change.
Right, yeah. It didn't blow me away, but I think I just don't like mobile games that much anymore. But I just wanted to say that I didn't really like it that much because I thought I might rile you.
What a jerk!
Such a dick. No, I can see why.
Was it just the hour-long pirate section that you didn't like?
No. I can see why it's well thought of, because it's really good looking and it was a fun game.
It's really well designed and nicely done. I mean, I think I would have preferred. I sat like on my sofa playing it on like a big screen iPad. Maybe with the music, and that music's really good. Did you have your music on in headphones, or were you listening to your own music?
I think I did. I can't remember.
Because the music of the game and the whole atmosphere of it, I think, you'd lose that standing on a train playing it on a small screen phone. But I think it's really, really good. I mean, I played it on the iPad, and
it was last summer, and it was a heat wave, and when I played it, and the train was really hot, and everyone was annoyed with the train conductor man because it was really hot. which I thought was unfair. But he gave everyone little bottles of water, so that disrupt the game quite a lot. It's not one of my strongest tales. So I've also played SteamWorld Dig on the PlayStation 4, which I think I might have got for free at some point or something. I don't know, but I've had it for a while.
Pretty sure that was on PS Plus, but not 100%.
So it's quite old now, but I just felt like playing it, and it was about 4 hours of it, and I really enjoyed the first few hours, and then it started getting quite hard. So basically, it's like a 2D, it's sort of Minecraft cross with Terraria, but it's kind of like it has a start and an end, really. So it's not really open ended, but you're going down in a mine and you're digging, and you're going back up to upgrade your. Once you've picked up a certain amount of gems, you can only carry so much. It's a bit like in Minecraft and Terraria, I think, where it's like you have to keep going back up to your base perennially because you can't carry enough loot. So that's the kind of loop in that game, and you're just gradually going down, and you're coming back up with gems and stuff, and you sell them and you buy better gear. And I had a really good time with it for like 3.5 hours, and then the final like hour you're in like a harder area, and like it started to get really, it's one of those, I guess you call it a roguelike or whatever, where when you die it just leaves your stuff where you were, so you then respawn and you just go down the mine to find where you were. And it just kind of like, I was just, in those sorts of games where it's just you just keep banging your head against it basically, and eventually you brute force your way through. And I kind of did that. And then there's a final boss, which was just really hard and required like a dexterity and ability that the rest of the game didn't. So I don't think it ended that well, but I really enjoyed the sort of 3 or so hours. So I had with it when I did enjoy it. So I think I'll get the sequel, because the sequel came out last year.
No, I think about it. I actually did play that. I remember playing it, and I must have played it for like a couple of hours, but I wasn't really sure. I guess I didn't realize so I realized it was, I might have been halfway through it. I might have carried on playing it, but it felt like the kind of game that you could just play forever. Like it was going to keep expanding, and you keep going down and you keep going down. And maybe if I'd have realized it kind of had a discrete ending, I would have carried on. Yeah, but I did enjoy it. Yeah, I recall enjoying it, but it was a long time ago when that was on PS Plus.
So I quite enjoyed that one. And I played through Uncharted Lost Legacy, which I started on a Friday night and then got up fairly early on Saturday to do some errands. And then after that played it and then finished it by about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So it was about 7 hours, I think. And I really, really liked it. Like I don't know that I would say it was better than Uncharted 4, because Uncharted 4, while longer and thus had some more boring stretches, has a really, it's pretty good for most of its run, Uncharted 4. So you are getting less game with Uncharted Lost Legacy, but it was really good. Lost Legacy had really nice surprises in it and really satisfying ending, and it's almost faultless actually, like absolutely fantastic game.
No, that's really good, because I remember we talked about it before, and both me and you've played, haven't you, John?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we were both saying that, given your previous complaints about other Uncharted games, that they go on for too long and there's too much of this and too much of that we thought it was the perfect Uncharted game for you, because it's shorter, more direct, no padding really, all killer, no filler, as they say. So it's good. I'm glad to hear you liked it, because otherwise we would have been horribly wrong, because we kind of really assumed you would.
I think I have a lot of fondness for it already, but I think I also have a lot of fondness for Uncharted 4. But I think the ending of Uncharted 4 I found really, really strong. In a way, Lost Legacy with its reduced scope isn't really exactly the same sort of game, although they're pretty damn close. They just do slightly different things very well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I may have said at the time, so if I did, forgive me for repeating, but even though it's obviously the same engine and the same world and the same characters and stuff, they are different games. Lost Legacy is very much, it's kind of like a movie. It starts and it keeps going and it keeps going and it keeps going and it keeps going. You eventually get to the end and it's great and it's done. Whereas the Uncharted 4 and the longer form games, it's more like a TV series where you've got the overall arc, and there's some bits which are great and exciting and some bits you're like, oh, well, it was a bit of a flat episode, but it carries you all the way through. it's presented in the same medium, but they're different things. I think that's the way that I viewed it.
Do you know what? I really, really like Lost Legacy, and as you know, I like basically all of the Uncharted games. But I would say now, like, and this is true of all the Uncharted games, that there is a tendency in my mind for them to blur together a bit. Like same characters, same basic type of gameplay, similar kind of locales. I sort of have a bit in my head for most of the Uncharted games that I kind of picture as being like the one big moment or one thing I remember about them. But with Lost Legacy now, I'm struggling to think of a particular bit I really liked, but I really enjoyed the whole game.
There's a sequence with a train which is fantastic. I thought, and the long stretch which you mentioned on the podcast before, where you're driving around. You're in a Jeep basically. You're going from location to location. Uncharted 4 had a similar thing, but Uncharted 4 I wanted to kind of see all the different areas in the big open area they have. Like in the middle of Uncharted 4, there's a big open area, and I wasn't sure. I had 2 locations to go to, and I wasn't sure which one would complete the area and move me on. So I wanted to go to that one last, but I picked that one first accidentally. So I missed a tower or something that I wanted to go and look at. But Lost Legacy very cleverly marks it all on the map and makes it very clear which bits are extraneous. So I could go and do all the extraneous bits first, and get all the dialogue. And it was a joy. The characters are so well written and so likable. Is it Chloe and Nadine?
Yeah.
Yep.
Very well acted, very well written. I had an absolute blast with them. And Drake is obviously God, what's his actual name?
Nathan.
It's his surname, isn't it, Drake? Nathan. Nathan Drake's obviously a well-written character because he's so popular. So he obviously works, but his shtick's, I guess, kind of a bit old now. Whereas spending that much time with Chloe and Nadine they're just different characters. They're both really interesting, really likable in their own ways. So I wanted to I was happy driving around in the Jeep, getting their dialogue options. And it had this really nice mechanic as well, where you could go to certain places in the world and press triangle and she'd take a picture on a cell phone. So if you then flicked open the cell phone towards the end of the game, you see all these different memories and things from your 7 hours of the game. It's a really nice touch that.
That was sorry, I was going to say that was something that you could basically do in the other Uncharted game, where you could open Drake's logbook, like his notebook, and you could flick through. And obviously there were like things in the book which were relevant to puzzles and stuff like that. But you could flick through the other pages, and you had pictures of like Sully smoking a cigar, and then all this kind of like silly doodles he'd done and stuff. So that was kind of cool as well. But yeah, just interesting. They took the phone idea, so they didn't have just exactly the same for this new game. But yeah, I mean, it's the thing, like the driving around in the Jeep bit I really liked, but it reminded me of the bit in Uncharted 4. The train bit reminded me of the bit in Uncharted 2. So it was kind of like, I really liked it. But yeah, in terms of a unique thing that it did, I can't think of one now off the top of my head.
No, I mean, a couple of the puzzles were quite cool, but yeah,
the puzzles were good. Yeah.
There was one part around the halfway mark where you go into a huge area that has like an aqueduct, and it's got these 2 giant statues of Indian gods, and you see them from afar and you think, well, I'm probably gonna have to climb that, but it's almost in like one unbroken shot. You walk up to them and then you scale them and you go all the way around them, and it takes about half an hour, and it's almost just like you're climbing the things that were miles away, that were huge, that you walked up to. It really struck me it was one of those weird things when you're playing a video game and you think, bloody hell, these things are technically impressive these days. Like, I don't really know how they did that, because they can't have been rendering, when you're up close climbing these huge statues, they're so detailed, but they can't have been rendering all of that from afar. It just, I don't know much about how they do it, to be honest, but I was impressed with that. That, I don't know, it's so fresh in my mind that I can conjure up all these examples of great scenes.
Yeah, and just after I played it, I said about how much I liked it, and I still have a lot of fond memories of it. But I'd say just now, after quite a period of time, looking back, I'm thinking, which bit, what's the one memory of Lost Legacy? That bit you were just talking about with the big kind of like God's faces, I can remember that. Now you mentioned it, that sort of stays in my mind quite clearly, but it didn't jump out, So
No.
I'm certainly not saying it's a bad game, so I really loved it. But just, yeah, when I look back at that sort of whole collection of Uncharted games all mangled together in my head, it's hard to pick out Lost Legacy over the others. Although, as you say, I really like the two characters, and thought it made a nice change to have some different characters. So
yeah, I was playing it wondering, is this it? Like, is this the last Uncharted game? Like, I don't, because Uncharted 4, I'm fine with that being the end of that story of those characters for the most part. But Lost Legacy, I would happily play through another game with Chloe and Nadine and the other characters that pop up.
Well, that's the nice thing, isn't it? Chloe and Nadine, they've got a whole load of kind of backstory and history before they even met Nathan Drake. Sully, he's like obviously a relatively old man in all of the Uncharted games, but he was clearly a young man at some point and up to who knows what kind of adventures. And so he could be a good character you could play in a future game. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be Nathan Drake to be an Uncharted game and be in that world and be that kind of game, does it? So there's loads that they could do with it.
Yeah. I hope so. I'd quite like to play another one. Give it a couple of years, I think, from my perspective, and I'd be well up for another adventure with whomever, because they're so well made. Yeah. But yeah, I absolutely loved that game. That was great. I've also been playing Infamous Second Son. I'm kind of going through old PlayStation games in the winter because there's less going on socially. So I'm just like
when you're trapped in your snowed-in cabin,
going to the gym and working and playing PlayStation games. So Infamous Second Son I'm playing on, and that I don't know about that. I'm gonna play through it, but I'm not sure about the combat, and I'm not sure about the character and the story. Like, it's just a bit dumb, I guess, but it's fine. So I'm going to play through it and see how, if I end up really liking it. At the moment, I just think it's fine.
When I played through it, there was a kind of dichotomy because you can be a twat in the game if you choose to be, and I don't like doing that in games. I don't know. Maybe
you save that for real life.
I save that for real life. Absolutely, that's what games are for. It's an escape. But his character he's a selfish dick, basically. That's how he's introduced, and he doesn't really give a shit about anybody but himself. So playing it the way that I wanted to play it kind of ran contrary to that, and I didn't want to play it another way. So I guess you could go and just do the whole dick thing. I don't know. When I got through to the end of it, I sort of looked back and thought, well, that was all right. I'm not sure that I'm not sure if it aligned well enough with the first one. It was different, and there was some odd stuff in there, which frankly I really didn't get the hang of. But I don't know. Some of the little quirky stuff was all right. I liked spray painting the billboards. That was fun. And having those big fights. But yeah, it kind of measured up differently, I think, and maybe an alternate gameplay style would have suited the game better, but I'm not sure the outcome would have been as good. I don't know. It's weird.
I really enjoyed playing it, but it's one of these games, looking back on it now a couple of years later, and I sort of look back and think, maybe it wasn't that great, but I definitely enjoyed it at the time. I remember that. One thing, Simon, I remember it being really kind of impressive technically with all the kind of neon colours and lights and explosions and all that kind of stuff. Is it still look good now, or is it looking a bit dated?
So I think they've patched in HDR since the PlayStation Pro came out, because it is an HDR game. It does look really nice. It's one of those games where it's just, I mean, obviously the HDR perhaps doesn't help, but it's got really, one of the games that has, I think it just naturally has really high contrast. So I suppose what I mean by that, and I perhaps used the wrong term, but if it's sunset or sunrise, it's really dark, like it almost cartoonishly dark. If the sun's like really high in the sky, then it's light and everything. But I mean, I'm lucky enough to have a good TV, and as long as it's not too bright in the surroundings, I can still see what I'm doing. But it just, something like Horizon just felt the weather, like the sun position and the lighting felt a bit more correct, whereas Infamous, I feel like I'm running around, and I think that what it does is it makes everything drab, apart from all that there's a lot of neon and lights, and the actual lighting of the light sources is very impressive in Infamous. So I don't know if that's why they make everything kind of almost high contrast naturally, is so that the lights really pop.
I did get the impression it was like you say, the world's quite drab in order to really make the neon and all that stuff like really sparkle and really shine. And I got that impression that was deliberate rather than having a really colourful world. That
you've almost got that TV camera kind of aperture thing, haven't you? Like when you're going, when you're on a car going out of a tunnel, all it is a big white light, and it stays a white light until it comes back down. It's really that sort of harsh. If you're in the bright bit and you're looking into a dark bit, it's just black. You're not getting any cast off or reflections off buildings or anything like that. If it's a shadow, it's basically just black. So yeah, I remember that, and I think it's a stylistic cue. I think Tony's right. It's a cue to make the neon girls neon and the fire stuff and all that kind of thing just pop out at you. There was a couple of times that I kind of didn't really know where I was down alleys and stuff like that as well, which was frustrating. But yeah,
I think that it's interesting as well because it's a 2014 game, and the writing isn't quite. It's very close to like, oh, I'm a badass dude. I wear a hoodie and I'm like an awesome dude and I do graffiti and things. And it just isn't. It isn't quite that simple. There's a little bit more nuance to it than that. But it's very much like I don't think they would make a lead character in a game like this and a story now in 2018, 4 years down the road. I don't think they would do that. There's games that come out that would be comparable now, would be like Assassin's Creed Origins, which, as I understand, it has a little bit more of a mature kind of story and more developed characters or whatever. So it feels a little bit like it's from 2014, but it feels a little bit like I'm playing a game from 2010. It feels quite, it's dated, I think.
It's a bit Avatar-y.
Shut your face.
You mean really good?
Yeah.
No. No, it's a fine game, but like for example, I played Watch Dogs 2 a year or two ago, and that was set in a similarly colourful, vibrant city, San Francisco, vaguely comparable to Seattle, I suppose, having never been to either place. But it was about a young person, maybe early 20s, dealing with their new powers and things, and Watch Dogs 2 just seemed a lot smarter, a lot more contemporary. And I think Infamous Second Son's it's just a little bit dated.
Well, I guess it is 4 years old, so you can forgive it that to a degree.
Yeah, absolutely. So one more game I have played very briefly, which I'm quite excited about. There's a game called FTL. The same developers have now released a follow-up game, which is Into the Breach. So FTL, I might have talked about in the podcast before, but it's a really cool strategy game that I think people who liked it really, really liked it. So that was where FTL, you were dealing with a spaceship and you had to try and keep your crew alive and make it through the galaxy. Whereas Into the Breach has a really interesting central conceit where you're basically, you control a squad of 3 tanks or mechs, and each of them has a pilot. And you get dropped into a series of 8x8 grids. And these grids have like mountains, buildings, water, and alien monsters that come out of the ground. And you have to try and kill the alien monsters before they destroy the buildings and take down the power grid and kill people. And it's one of those games where you're like, just like FTL, you're going to fail. So you're going to have to restart. But the cool conceit they have is the way you restart is you have a temporal breach, and you can send, every time you're about to fail, you can send one pilot back. So he goes back in time to the start of the game, and you go back through again. It's procedurally generated, so it's different each time, but you keep this one pilot who you can level up and you'll get different perks and things. So I haven't played enough of it, I only played about half an hour of it, but if you keep going through, you'll end up with this one pilot who's really good, and then inevitably you're going to lose that pilot at some point somehow. But I thought it was a really cool idea. It's been getting really good reviews, and what I've played of it, it seems really good. So I like, that's on PC.
Do you know, from a little bit of a blast down memory lane, probably nearly as old as Avatar, if not a bit older. Do you remember a game called Cannon Fodder? It was on the Amiga, so like a really old game. That had a similar thing. You had each mission you completed successfully with a soldier, he would like kind of rank up, and he'd be able to shoot a bit further, and he'd be able to move a bit faster and stuff like that. And like you say, you get one or two of them through like 20 odd missions, and they'd be like really badass, and then they'd get killed, and you'd be like, no, and then you're back to like 5 rubbish soldiers, and it was like a nightmare. And I just remembered that, when you were talking about that, the idea of having a character that you built up for ages and then they die, and you really become quite attached to them.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think XCOM's the classic for that. Like XCOM, you get attached to the soldiers, but they can die really quickly. I think with Into the Breach, I really like that central conceit where they sort of, it's almost like they thought, we're going to have this game, it's going to be like FTL, but instead of you losing everything on each run, you get to keep one of the 3 pilots. You have to choose which one, and then not only do we just like say, oh, you got to keep the pilot, but we have this really cool like idea of like, oh, we have to do a temporal breach, we can send one person back. I think it's just it's almost like a really cool cinematic idea actually. But yeah, I spent a little bit of time with that. So that's all the games I've played. I've been playing loads of video games. Can you imagine?
Wow, fantastic. And you been eating any crisps?
I had some barbecue bugles yesterday. I bought loads of crisps because I thought, I'll be stuck in because of the snow, so I need better get loads of like carbs and stuff. But I ate most of them accidentally last night.
Anyway, I was actually only just saying that to mock you. I didn't really care about what crisps you bought.
Well, you should know by now that is an opening that you cannot allow.
So what I was going to do is try and get Kat involved, because I'm assuming Kat hasn't played any of the games that Simon's just been on about.
No, I was just sitting quietly listening to story time. Yeah, while you guys have been playing just video games, normal everyday video games, I've been deep down a rabbit hole that I've only just clambered out of recently.
Should we call you Alice?
Yep. There's a streamer who I watch sometimes when she plays Overwatch, and I went to her stream one day and she wasn't on Overwatch. She was on something called VR chat. She was using VR and she was meeting all these like weird and wonderful people, some pervy people, but I was like, oh, that looks cool. Like
you mean men?
Men. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that looks really cool. Like, that's one of the first times I wished I had VR, because I thought that's almost like the seed of that, the Oasis from Ready Player One. So like, I could imagine that was like how it starts. Mm-hmm. And then I saw in the chat, somebody said, no, you don't need VR to play it. You can go in and just use like keyboard, mouse and everything. So I was like, like I might see if this will work. I was like, I doubt it will work. But I gave it a go on the laptop, and it's a bit laggy, but it worked. And it's really hard to describe what it is. It reminded me of in the early days of the internet, where you'd have something like AOL, and then you'd go to AOL chat, and then you'd pick from all these different chat rooms, and then just see where the conversation goes. Normally to like cybersex.
Yeah, I was going to say SL.
And it's done similar in VR chat, but it's kind of like that, but sort of kind of improved. I imagine, like, I haven't tried obviously VR with it. I'm not talking about the cybersex now. I'm talking about in general. So I went in, and there's these different worlds. You choose which world you want to go to. Some of them have avatars you can like borrow for the session. So you can go in. There was an Overwatch world that wasn't very good, but I was like, I'll be Widowmaker. So I clicked on Widowmaker. So I'm walking around this game as Widowmaker. You've got thousands of like anime girl avatars because this is predominantly used by younger people.
Can we just get the URL so John can log on? I can see his eyes lighting up.
I've been like a cat girl at one point when I was trying to get into the spirit of the anime. I don't do anime, but I was like, okay, I'll begrudgingly join in, and I was a cat girl for a bit. And But yeah, and it started off like, it's a bit weird because you go in and I got all the mics set up, but it's like, how do I bless you, Tony?
Oh, sorry about that.
How do I like interact with these people? And it's like, so like you end up kind of semi role playing. And
I bet there were a lot of semis in that game.
There was a bar. There's a bar called the Pug, like a British pub. And so I would go behind the bar as Widowmaker and just be like the barmaid. And people would come into this world, sit down, and I'd be like, "Can I get you a drink?" And like that's just the icebreaker. And sometimes I've been told that I was a whore and stuff like that. A thought, as the kids say.
Hang on, what?
A thought.
I need to write this down because I'm going to have a kid. Right?
You need to know this. So yeah. So you can call her a thought, THOT.
THOT.
Basically another word for like a hoe. So I've been called like a thought, but like in a mean way, not in like a fun, joking way. Just like,
there's a nice way to call someone a hoe. I mean, no offense, but I
might get there in a minute.
Sorry.
So I have like these random conversations, and some of them get like quite deep. Like the first guy that I made friends with, we chatted back and forth, and then would like meet up if we were both online at the same time, and then added each other to PlayStation. He was a really cool guy. Then there was another guy that I spoke to who was from the Middle East and moved to Sweden, I think when he was about 18. And he was talking about how like he goes on and he just plays the piano like through the mic. So I was nearby. I was actually a cat at the time. I was in a cat avatar. So like I'm this literally a tiny little kitten that like, so anyone using VR like looks down and they'll see this tiny little cat, and that's me. And he had Meow in his name. So I went up to him and just listened to him playing the piano, and I was like, dude, that was really pretty. That was really nice. Was that you playing it? So we get talking, and yes, I found out his life story and that his dad was beheaded and stuff to do with terrorists. What? Yeah, like
Jesus.
I mean, okay, you can take it with a pinch of salt, but he seemed very legit, talking about sort of like growing up Muslim and all this. Also, so we were talking for like 2.5 hours.
And there was me about to make a joke about you being the only woman on there to find a pianist.
But so there's that aspect, and then there's like the really silly aspect, and I ended up with like a group of VR chat buddies. Got VR married to one of them. He's a really sweet guy. Then we adopted the youngest in our group. So he's now my son. And then another couple had also gotten married, and they adopted another one. And I'm now his art. Like it gets really weird. But it kind of works in that circle. And it's quite cool because you can go on there and like just from our group alone, a small group, we've got Norwegians, Japanese, the Japanese frog guy.
the Japanese frog guy. Say no more. That all seems legit.
Yeah, it's all fine. Americans, Germans. I met not part of our group as such, but I met a guy who streams on Twitch, and he's Canadian, but he sounds just like McCree from Overwatch. And so I got talking to him. I didn't realize I was being streamed at the time. So like that was really cool. And he said that he estimated that one night he said it's high noon, like McCree's line, 70 odd times, because everyone goes up to him and says, "You sound just like McCree from Overwatch," and he just plays up to it. So it became like this really cool thing, and I was going on every night, and I was thinking, this is just me playing on a desktop version. Like I could see how, like, if there was this like Oasis system in the future, that you could just like lose your life to it, because you could choose to be anyone you wanted to be. You end up with like a bit of confidence, because like if you don't go on with someone, you can just block them. You don't have to see them ever again. So like it was really cool. There are games in it. Like it sounds just like a chat room, which I pretty much use it as. But you can have different worlds. We'll have like shooting games. There was, and it's user created content. So like you can go to the pub from Shaun of the Dead. Is it the Winchester?
Winchester, yeah.
Like, so somebody's like replicated that. Somebody made it's a game where it's basically a minefield, and you all line up and you try and find your path across without exploding. Which sounds like really simple, but it's a kind of like dumb, fun thing that was good to play. There was like actual board games. They set up worlds so you could play like werewolves and mafia. Really cool.
Werewolves and Mafia. Is that one game? Because that sounds really fucked up.
No, like the game Werewolves based on Mafia.
So do you do the thing where you close your eyes and point and stuff? Or how does it, is it like in the game? Because in Wolves, in real life, you do this thing where you close your eyes and point at people and things. But
yeah. I mean, I went to the world because I thought, this will be fun for us to do as a group, but there were so many rules written on the entranceway. I thought, I can't be bothered with this, and I changed to another world. So I don't know exactly how it works.
I saw someone playing it, and they went up like 3, 4, 5 flights of stairs. They were in a pub, but they went all the way upstairs, and there was like an upstairs pub.
Yeah.
Have you done that world? Is that
it sounds a bit like the Pug, because you can go.
Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's the Pug.
Yeah, and you the bottom tends to be chaos because that's where everyone enters, but you can go up a couple of floors.
John's writing that down. The bottom tends to be chaos because that's where everyone enters.
But the top, I'm worried about what I'm going to say now. Yeah, the top is more like chilled. There's like a fireplace there.
Yes,
and you can like hang out. That's where I had like that long talk with the guy from like the Middle East. But yeah, so it's an odd collection, and the one thing that's come out is that everyone on it, almost everyone on it that I've met, I think has some form of like mental disorder or dysfunction, or like the people that seem to use it loads are those that maybe have depression, or they're lonely, they have anxiety or social anxiety. So for me, it was just like, it was a fun way of just meeting new people. The novelty.
Feels like a strange thing to do if you have social anxiety. Presumably, I would have thought talking to random people would be quite stressful for people with that, even not in person.
It sort of depends on the anxiety you have, but you're not putting yourself out there in the same extent you would if you went to like a party and speed dating or something.
You've got an element, and if it goes wrong, you can just pull the plug, can't you, and just bail out. It's a bit less awkward. But yeah, I'm just still a bit surprised that. I mean, John, you don't have social anxiety. You're just a miserable bastard, aren't you? So this probably sounds terrible to you.
That sounds like my idea of a nightmare.
I mean, I don't want to talk for my son, my VR son, but like the first time I met him, he was completely silent. He just played this little tiny Japanese lolly character, and just sort of like was nodding and shaking, her head in the game, and went from that to, bless him, he's a very energetic, loud, crazy guy. And so I don't know if that was the case with him, whether it was just that initial shyness or that anxiety or not wanting to speak in the game, if you could get by with just like nodding and shaking your head, or if that was just part of his character. But I think once I think you can kind of like coax people out of their shell, because they might start off in the group like sort of silent, not really saying anything, but because everyone else is talking, or they'll want to join in on a joke, or then they'll say a couple of things, and then that snowballs, because you might ask them like, where are you from? How old are you? ASL, all that.
I've met people at parties who are like that. They'll stand in the group and be very quiet, and then maybe you talk to them sort of outside of the group, and they're really chatty.
Yeah.
And then maybe you might come out of the shell a little bit. Yeah. So here's a question: are you going to tell your VR chat friends about this podcast?
They already know that I'm, because we're all on Discord.
Oh, it's just because we desperately need as many listeners as possible. Hi guys.
And this time, like, I've avoided actually mentioning names, because when I've done that in the past and I've like given like little shout outs, because I think people like to hear their names mentioned, I then get like another 5 people saying,
on this podcast.
What, to hear your name?
Yeah, I say my name at the start, so I get to hear it, and it makes me feel like a big man.
But then you have like all the people who you didn't do a shout out for are like, oh, why didn't you mention me? Oh. So I'm just going to dodge it this time and be like, my son, my husband, my nephew. Yeah,
I guess that's understandable. I mean, personally, I'm a prick, so if anyone says, why didn't you mention me? I'll say, well, it's because I don't like you very much. So it's quite easy to get around that problem. If you're a known arsehole, it's not really an issue.
Yeah. But like what happened from that is I did start to tire of going into VR chat, and it's a faff. It's like you're almost like strapped in, because it's the laptop, plugging in a mic and then plugging in a headset, a bit like the setup for this.
And this is a major pain in the ass.
A mouse mat, and like, so I was trying to like get all that together, and I was getting wrist pains because I don't have a proper like PC gaming desk or anything. So I was like, sort of starting to get a bit bored of it, but I still wanted to like hang out with them, even though I'm not really a proper PC gamer. So we did like the Cards Against Humanity, the online version, and then I downloaded Team Fortress 2, because I was like, if VR chat just about works, then maybe a game from like 10 years ago or whatever will do the job.
That's from the 90s, wasn't it? Team Fortress 2?
Same time as Avatar, yeah.
Checking with Tony, yeah. Sorry.
Same year as Avatar, definitely.
Yeah. And I'd had a couple of hours on it from years back, but I'd never sort of got into it or played it properly. It was probably really laggy back then for me. So that was fun. That was quite interesting. I will go back and I'll play it some more, but I put a good few more hours into it, and I could see there like the similarities where people like take little jibes at Overwatch and say, oh, Team Fortress 2 ripping off Team Fortress, and I could see the bits then, because I was like, oh, this character is just like this one, and you've got the whole payload pushing and the different modes. But obviously, I mean, Overwatch is newer, much more polished and satisfying to play. But I was running around as the pyro in TF2, and it was beautiful. Just setting people on fire really does it for me.
Add that to the list of sexual kinks. Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me.
It reminded me of, like, because in Left 4 Dead, I liked the Molotov bottles in.
I can see John writing that down. Kat saying setting people on fire really got me off. He's literally writing it down. I can see him doing it.
I'm having one of those like flashbacks of all the gaming years, just thinking about all the games I've played with Kat, and I'm like seeing everything with different eyes. I'm like, oh my God, she was lighting those people on fire. And when I came around the corner and asked her what she's doing, she was like, nothing, I'm not doing anything.
She sounded all breathless.
like playing Syndicate when you used to be able to go around and flamethrower crowds of civilians.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
So the pyro reignited something inside of me. That's a pun. There we go. So that was really fun. Yeah. I was just going to say, I've just looked at when Avatar came out, and it was 1994. So there you go. Avatar?
Isn't it? Just being an idiot.
No. Oh, okay. I shouldn't take it.
No, nobody else does. No, I'm just lying. Simon was 1 year out. It was 2009.
Okay.
Feels like 100 years ago.
That's because you're getting old.
Yeah.
I think Team Fortress 2 is probably one of the most important games I've never played.
It is. Yeah. It is. I think from like a multiplayer perspective as well. It's just it is really fun, especially with the fire. And you get the chat down the bottom. It was always like fucking pyros. It's like, well, stop walking into my fire then. But
Cat's like running in. I am the god of hellfire.
Yeah,
I bring you
much.
fire.
You just get this like ding 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 as like all the damage on people, and it's like, oh, that's amazing. But yeah, one of my VR chat friends, he gave me some pyro stuff because the game's changed completely since I tried it a few years ago, like for content and all that. And it's a special weapon that gives you like pyro vision, because they did a lot of shorts so you can like meet all the characters, so you can watch them on YouTube. And I watched the pyros one, and it's amazing. It's such a funny, like it was just me. It was like me in a video, because this pyro is obviously like going crazy and like setting people on fire and just on a murder rampage, but they see it all as like sparkles and rainbows.
Yeah, I think I've seen that actually. Yeah.
And you can have this weapon that actually makes you see. So instead of like seeing yourself like throw out fire, it is like rainbows that you're just like, and like the health packs are like little cupcakes, and you just see the whole world from Pyro's eyes with this weapon equipped. And I was like, this is brilliant. Like, I like the fire, but killing people with rainbow fire is even better.
Jesus Christ. So I've just realised I've been at your house once, and we presented you with a birthday cake with lit candles on it. I had no idea we were, sailing so close to the wind with that.
I almost had like a mouthful of alcohol for like when I blow it out, I just like set you on fire at the same time. But yeah, it did get me really excited for Red Dead Redemption 2, because I'm like, that's going to have like Molotovs or something in. Because I remember, I think that Sean, when I was playing with him, and I think that seems to be like one of his main memories of gaming with me, is just me just constantly throwing fire bottles at him and knocking him off his horse. So I'm like, yes, bring that back. So as well with Overwatch, they've just announced the 27th hero, Brigitte.
I was saying Brigitte.
I thought it was Bridget, isn't it? Yeah.
She's Swedish. It's pronounced something like Brigitte. I'm going to call her Bridget.
Brigadier.
But I was really hoping that the next hero to be announced would be using fire, that they would kind of like do it as a nod to the pyro. But I'm going to have to keep waiting for that.
Getting a bit weird now.
Do you know, after having bought Overwatch, actually, one of the things that kind of struck me about it, and I struggled to get into it, partly because there were so many characters and I didn't know what I was doing. So you saying the 27th character is like, puts me off going back to it almost more than anything. Just like, oh my God, there's even more now. I know that's also true of Rainbow Six Siege and games like that, where they keep expanding the character roster, and it can be quite difficult to get into it now, because you're like, wow, there's loads of characters, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think especially if you went in and like, yeah, sort of just wanting to try all of them at the same time, like in quick succession, I think that'd be confusing. I mean, my VR husband, he ended up, he didn't like Overwatch the first time. I think he just tried it when it was first out or something. But he did the free weekend the other weekend and really enjoyed it. And my advice to like him and others that try coming in is just to start off with someone like Soldier 76, because that's the closest like a Call of Duty character. You're just literally running, gunning, and you can heal. Like, so you've got yourself covered, or Mercy, and just play those, get to know the maps and watch the other heroes and see like which ones look fun. Like, do you want to put down a shield for everyone? And I can see how it's a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, it's not like I didn't enjoy it, but it was very hard. And I got into Rainbow Six Siege when that first came out, and I imagine to go into that now as a new player would be just like a wall. I don't think Overwatch is quite as bad as that, but I don't know, it just feels like a hard game to get into if you kind of weren't there at day one,
I think
there were about 6 people you could choose from. Like, because I tried the beta.
Oh, maybe Six Siege. There weren't that many, but then since then they've added, or at least at least 12 and maybe 14 more characters.
There are loads. Like, yeah,
there are lots now, and it's quite. I mean, even I don't know what all of them do, and I've still played that game a fair bit. But yeah, it's just difficult, I think, with anything if you come in a little bit late to it. But that's the thing with games now; they last so long, don't they? They go for it's a multi-year experience rather than a 2 months after launch day thing. You know?
Yeah.
Overwatch is like I one of the things they do with Overwatch is they have like appearance archetypes, whatever. So like almost the silhouette of a character to some extent informs what they are. So all the tanks are bigger, and the agile characters who can fly are generally quite obvious that they've got wings and things. But like, so there are little visual shorthands in there. But yeah, it would definitely be, because I think it's not just knowing your character's abilities, it's what you're up against. So like I played quite a lot of Overwatch when it came out. So if I came in now, there'd be a handful of new characters and I'd have a little bit of a learning curve, but I'd generally be fine. But a big part of Overwatch is knowing when to fight, when to run away, or when to use your ability or whatever. And that's completely informed by what your opponent's doing. And it's very difficult to know that if you've not played much of the game. Rainbow Six is the same actually, but Rainbow Six is even harder because there's not really the visual shorthand as much.
What really helps with newcomers to Overwatch is the fact that you're always just up against fucking DPS, because nobody else ever wants to play like support or tank. So you will learn very quickly what Genji, Hanzo, McCree and Tracer do, because you'll just see them over and over and over again.
Hanzo's ridiculous. Hanzo was annoying at the start because Hanzo would get kill of the or play of the game every time. Like he would always just be a guy hiding at the back, dancing out around the corner, firing an arrow, going back, like knocking another arrow, firing and going, like that's all they would do. There'd be always one player would be doing that. Very frustrating.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're almost out of time. I do want to quickly talk about Shadow of the Colossus, and not so much me actually. I'm still playing it. I've got up to just before the podcast. I finished off the 15th of the Colossi out of 16. I'm absolutely loving it. Do you know, a really nice thing about going back to a game like that, which I haven't played since the PS3 remake, is that my memory isn't actually very good. So I'm kind of getting quite a fresh experience. I vaguely remember some of the Colossi, but like the one I just played, I couldn't remember how to do it. There's basically the thing about Shadow of the Colossus, if you've not played it, is it's kind of like a puzzle platformer, really. There's a trick. There's something you've got to suss out in order to sort of, get onto the Colossus or to find its weak point or to reveal its weak point or whatever. There's always some trick to each one. And I'd forgotten the tricks to a lot of them. And it was really fun just sort of running around with my horse and just charging around this huge creature chasing me or trying to hit me with a club or smash me with a tail or whatever. And just thinking, what the hell do I do here? And you do get like a hint. The game gives you a hint if you go on too long. But yeah, it was really good actually. Just like having a poor memory has been really nice for me to go back to that game, and it just looks incredible. I unlocked you unlock these kind of comparison screenshots of the PS2 version alongside the PS4 version in the same place, and it is just phenomenal, the difference. I mean, it looks like I remember the PS2 original looking like, but that's nothing like what it actually looked like. The PS2 version looked like total arse, and the new version just looks absolutely incredible. But what I was more interested in really is producer John's take on it, because he never played it before, right? And you bought it.
Yeah, I did.
So how are you finding it, John? I'm beginning to regret asking this.
I got so bored.
Bored?
Yeah. It's just I sat through that interminable opening sequence. Fucking guy on a horse, guy still on his fucking horse. Oh look, he's on his horse. Oh, he's got off his horse. He's carrying a girl. Still carrying the girl. Just put the girl down. Oh, there's a voice talking. Don't understand the voice. I have to read it. Yeah, I finished reading it now. The voice is still talking. Change the screen. Change the screen. There you go. New words to read. Yeah, finished. It was boring as fuck. God, and that was just the intro. And then I got out of the castle, and there was nothing there. So I walked, and I was expecting something to pop up or something to do. It's like, no, press a button. Oh, it's an arrow. I'll follow the arrow. I can't follow the arrow because the arrow's pointing me somewhere I can't go to. So I'll go around there. Oh, there's a wall. I know how to climb walls. I've played games for years. I know how to do this. I can't climb the wall. How do I climb the fucking wall? This does not follow any of the rules I'm accustomed to. I'm frustrated. I'm annoyed. I can only climb furry things. Oh, I see. It's one of those. And I just got a fucking lost interest. I genuinely did. I killed off the first Colossus using the trick that I'd learned that I can only climb things that are not hard. And
well, the first one is basically the tutorial.
Yeah,
Colossus,
exactly.
Isn't it? I mean, it's not exactly intended to be
that's
difficult.
kind of where I got to, and I thought, if I have to repeat this more than once more, I'm going to kill myself. So I switched it off and I played Knack instead. That's fun.
I saw you playing Knack. I was like, there must be some sort of problem here.
No, it was free. It was on PSN. It was free. It got such hype, and then it was such a downer on it afterwards. I thought, well, it's free. If it's shit, I'm not losing anything. And I loaded it up, and it's all right. I mean, it's kind of rinse and repeat. You know, he gets very big and he wins, and then he gets very small and you start again, and he gets very big and he wins, and he gets very small and you start again somewhere else. And it's kind of that thing. But there's some fun mechanics in there. I'm kind of enjoying it, and there's things to look at. So I'm sorry, Tony. I think that had I played Shadow of the Colossus from day one, I may have some fondness for it. But now I just got bored.
Oh, I think it's fantastic. I mean, the one thing I will give you, and I thought you were going to say this when you said you were bored of it, right, is some of the later ones are a bit hard to find. Like you say, you kind of get the marker and it points you in a direction and you struggle to find the way, and you find your way around and you realize you're not quite in the right place and you can wander about a fair bit. And I was fully expecting you to say that and say that you thought that bit sucked, because that wouldn't surprise me at all. But I'm very surprised to find you just killed the first Colossus and then sort of gave up, because I
just lost interest.
I can understand it if you got lost looking for one and couldn't find it, because that is quite sort of.
That's what made me fall off it. That's
yeah,
what
you do need to plow on and figure it out. So I would have fully understood it if you'd have said that. But I'm very surprised that you just killed the first one. I loved it. As soon as I saw that first Colossus, I was like, wow. Then they killed it. I was like, I want to see more of this. And yeah, so you do spend a bit of time wandering about. But so it's not what I expected for you to say.
Maybe I had overinflated expectations, but when I actually got to do something, you press the button and the arrows come on and you focus on stuff. And the controls, by the way, oh my God, how annoying are they? But eventually got to where, and it was just, okay, so is anything actually going to happen? No, it's not. Well, okay, that's fine. Nothing's going to happen until I find this thing. And I found it. And then is anything going to happen now? No, nothing else happens. All right. Okay. So this is tedium punctuated by mild periods of how the fuck do I do this? That's not how I want to spend my time. I think
I'm team John with this.
For fuck's sake, that's it. I'm not having either of these two.
I didn't understand the hype, and I don't know if I've still got your PlayStation 2 copy or something. I don't know if I ever gave it back to you. So I did start it, but I remember sitting, and I'm pretty sure I was watching Simon play it when we met up in Glasgow. And you sat there and you played it almost all night. Everyone else is off being social, and there's Simon hunched over this PlayStation.
It was my VR chat avatar. It was what it was.
I remember thinking it was actually quite chill to watch someone else playing it. But I remember thinking this feels like the same thing over and over again. And I think if you just don't dig it, then it's not going to suddenly get better.
Well, I think there's a huge amount of variety in the different Colossus. Some of them fly, some of them go underground, some of them are in the water.
But you're still clambering up over them, aren't you? And then
but often the trick is, as I said, to find your way onto the Colossus. That's usually where it gets difficult. Once you're on them, I mean, they will try to throw you off, and as you would if something was on your head, try to stab you. But I mean, in general, the trick of the game is more of a puzzle game, that you're trying to puzzle out, how the hell do I get onto this giant Colossus? What's the trick here? Do I leap from there? Do I climb up there? Do I have to find a hole? Do I do? There's all kinds of little tricks to it, and for me, that's what I really enjoyed about the game is like puzzling it out. But I mean, just the spectacle of it as well. Like when you get onto these things, they're just huge, and it looks so good now on the PS2. It looked amazing at the time. I was blown away by it at the time, but it looks terrible now. But the PS4 version, particularly on the Pro with the HDR and all that stuff going on, just looks amazing. And I would fully agree with anyone that said, like, there would be, it would be nice if there was a mode for people that just wanted to play the Colossuses. They press a button and you go to the next one and you do that, and then you
don't they have a time attack? There's a time attack mode, isn't there? Right?
Yeah, there's a time mode where you can, but I think you have to. I think you have to already killed them before you could just go back to do that. So yeah, I mean, I can understand that fully. If anybody said, "Oh yeah, I got really fed up with wandering about," because I mean, I spent ages the other day. I got a bit lost and I kept going to the wrong place. And I couldn't find one of them. I could fully understand people getting frustrated by that. But the actual gameplay, and once you find one, I just absolutely love it. I think it's great fun, like really interesting and a huge spectacle, and just even now actually at the time I remember being amazed because like platform games generally the platforms don't really they move, and maybe they move side to side or up and down or back and forth like you, but this is like the whole creature is a platform. It suddenly turns and you're upside down and you're side by side and your guy's hanging off and thrown around. I've never played a game since then that did anything really like that. It's like just in terms of the platforming, climbing on the creatures once you're on them, it's just like nothing else I've ever played. And still to this day, nobody else has really done that, which I really love. And I still think that holds up really, really well. Like I say, in terms of wondering about finding them, yeah, that's a bit of a ball ache. There are a few little tiny things to do in that world, but it is largely empty. And I could see people getting bored wandering around the world. I love it personally, just exploring this big empty world. I think it adds something to the game for me. But I could definitely see people losing interest in that.
You know what they say about people that find things boring? They're sexual risks.
Yeah. And I think you're pretty much right there, Simon. I think you've nailed that right down. So I'm gonna have a little cry with Simon slagging off Uncharted earlier, and John not liking Shadow of the Colossus. That's basically ruined my day.
Did you get to the pirate? Did you get to the pirate section in Shadow of the Colossus?
If I ever see a pirate section in the game again, I'm switching it straight off.
I didn't slag off Uncharted, did I?
just to sort of finish off, because Colossus wasn't the only game I downloaded as a result of last episode. I also downloaded Hellblade, and I got Knack as well, even though we'd talk about that. Hellblade, I thought I wasn't going to get on with it because even though it's a third person, the camera does that walking around shaky thing, and that kind of set.
Well, John didn't tell us that, did he?
It kind of does set me off. But I sort of managed to play through it, if you like, and it's really kind of cool. I really kind of like it. There's some really interesting game mechanics that I've not seen in anything similar. Oh, maybe one of there's a couple of the horror ones do things where you look through shapes and stuff and you see different things. But it was really interesting. And then I got stuck. I think it's glitched on me because I solved that you've got to kind of kill the demons and find some symbols and then gates open. And I killed all of the things and found the symbols and everything turned pale blue and the gates wouldn't open. So I think
sometimes I hate that in some games you spend ages and you think it's glitched and then you realize actually you've just missed something silly.
Yeah,
so hopefully it's just
may be that I was just frustrated and I thought, well, I'll come back to it maybe on another day. So I put Knack on. I
fuck this, I'm playing Knack.
But I have to say I do agree with Johnny. It's a great game and the psychology of it is really well presented. Really, really well presented. If you're somebody who's ever had doubting voices, oh my god, does it resonate? It's really well done.
Yeah, I've got 3 doubting voices every 2 weeks on this fucking podcast.
You're welcome.
I was going to say, I do want to play Hellblade. I'm looking forward to trying that. I was going to mention is I was thinking that I'd play that after I've finished Shadow of the Colossus, but the Bloodborne is coming out on PlayStation Plus. So I might try that. Although I understand it's one of these hard games and I tend to take to those very badly. Like I might play it for an hour, get pissed off, and then like throw it in the virtual bin in a rage, and then perhaps play Hellblade.
Well, along the lines of following the pattern of people recommending games, might I be the first to say, don't play Bloodborne. You will fucking hate it. I guarantee you.
Well, I'm going to have to play it now because I'm clearly going to love it in the same way that I thought John would like Shadow of the Colossus, and I was badly wrong, as it turns out.
Yeah, we'll see.
There we go.
I will at least try it. I will at least try it. But I very much doubt it will draw me in. From what I've heard about it, it's not. I don't really have the patience. I mean, you know, this podcast goes on a bit long for me, and
it's a bit long for everyone.
Yeah.
To get through it together.
Which
it is worse for the listeners. Yeah, but yes, as John has so subtly pointed out, I think it's time to hand over to Simon for Simon's Game.
Hello and welcome to Simon's Game. The scores at the moment in Simon's Game for the season are 6-2-3. So Tony has 6, the guests have 2, and producer John has 3. So producer John's doing better than the guests, which is great. But maybe Kat can do something about that this time.
No,
probably not. The Kat doesn't have the best history with Simon's Game, I don't think.
I got it when it was Overwatch twice in a row with bonus points.
The tap-in quizzes, yes.
Very well done indeed. I could see them in the history, actually. Number 1 Overwatch and number 2 Overwatch. Yeah, you absolutely smashed it that time. It was very impressive. Okay, so so 6-2-3. So this time out, I'm a video game. I will read a series of 10 clues, and our 3 contestants will each get 1 guess per clue. To guess, they say stop and their guess. So as I say, I'm a video game. So everybody ready?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okie dokie. So clue number 1. I'm controlled with a gamepad. Clue number 1. I'm controlled with a gamepad.
Stop. Overwatch.
Incorrect.
Okay, it's worth a go.
Stop. Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog's incorrect.
Stop. Crash Bandicoot.
Crash Bandicoot's incorrect. We're due a Crash Bandicoot, aren't we?
It's been a while.
Clue 2. I have a steely influence. Clue 2. I have a steely influence. Clue 3. I'm the first game in a successful series. Clue 3. I'm the first game in a successful series. Clue 4. I have an infectious spirit. Clue 4. I have an infectious spirit. Clue 5. My writer is from Israel. Clue 5. My writer is from Israel.
Stop. Dead Rising.
Dead Rising?
Yeah.
It's not correct.
That is the game. That is a game, though, isn't it? That's
It's a video game, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Stop. Left 4 Dead.
Left 4 Dead is incorrect. Clue 6. I'm the sort of game you would stick your neck out for. Clue 6. I'm the sort... Go on.
Dead Space.
Dead Space is incorrect.
Okay.
Clue 6.
It's getting a bit tense, isn't it?
I'm having to... The listeners can see I'm having to tease answers out of them.
I just want the guests to know that I'm trying. It's
a bit like I feel like I'm beckoning a rabbit into the cottage, which is something I do. I have to do every week. Come on, yes, do a little guess. All right, so what did I do? Clue 6. I'm the sort of game you would stick your neck out for. Clue 7. My lockpicks are a valuable commodity. Clue 7. My lockpicks.
Fallout.
Fallout is incorrect. My lockpicks are a valuable commodity.
Stop. The Last of Us.
The Last of Us is correct. Well done, Tony. Very well. Lots of quite cryptic ones in there because it's such a famous game. Last of Us, very well done, Tony. So I'll run through these. Will make you very angry. So clue number one. I'm controlled with a gamepad. That's what it says on the Last of Us main wiki page, which I thought was quite funny in itself. Clue 2, because it's the Last of Us wiki. So it's not like you even need to put the control method there because you're not differentiating it from. There aren't any other games
that you need to separate it from. Yeah.
Clue. Yeah, that's fine. Clue 2. I have a steely influence. Now this one's probably one of the all-time worst clues. So part of the game takes place in Pittsburgh, and the Pittsburgh football team is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, if you'd have got it from that, well, that would have been very impressive. But
you didn't.
I'd love to claim that I did, but it would be such an unconvincing lie. It's barely even worth floating it.
Clue, a bit like the Titanic. I said that. There's a lot of ice outside, so that's probably why.
Right ahead.
Moving on. Clue 3. I'm the first game in a successful series. So there's Last of Us 2 coming out soon. So
it was a bit of a push, that wasn't it?
Little cryptic clue for you there. Little cryptic one. Clue 4. I have an infectious spirit. So it's about a pandemic, infectious pandemic. Clue 5. My writer is from Israel. So I didn't know this, but Neil Druckmann, who's the writer and I think director, I'm not sure, but he also wrote and directed Uncharted 4 with other people. I'm not really sure. He's a big creative force at the developer.
Yeah.
He's half Israeli. He was born in Israel, as I understand, which I didn't know. I thought was interesting. Clue 6. I'm the sort of game you would stick your neck out for. It's another cryptic one. There's a famous scene in Last of Us with giraffes. So I'm the sort of game you would stick your neck out for. You guys kicking yourselves.
And then there was me thinking, like, what kind of games can you cut people's heads off in?
Yeah, I was
So the first proper clue, clue 7, my lockpicks are a valuable commodity. You got it on. So in Last of Us, you have shivs, which you can either use to bail you out of a situation where you've gotten spotted by an enemy, and you can stab them in the neck with a shiv.
Because you can kill the clickers that you can't kill any other way once they've grabbed you, unless you've got a shiv. So it's kind of a get out of jail free card, isn't it, when you're fucked?
Or you use them to open up doors. So you can you've either got prevention or cure. I suppose you're deciding between using your shiv to open a door and get some better gear to prevent getting into a situation where you might have needed the shiv to bail you out. It's a nice little mechanic, that one. Cheeky little mechanic, yeah? No.
It's the same way you use the same stuff that you use to make a first aid kit as you use to make a Molotov. So you got that offensive, defensive choice. I know what Cat would choose. Goes without saying.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, yeah. No, they're all about that little choice there.
Yeah.
Maybe they should think of different ideas, actually. It's a bit of a criticism now. I've turned on them. Go quickly, I turned on them. Clue 8, which we didn't get to, my story would make a fantastic movie, which I think it would. I really think that Joel and Ellie story would be a great sort of 2 or 3 hour movie.
As long as they didn't call it the Joel and Ellie story, because that would make it sound like some kind of shit rom-com.
Yep. Clue 9. Some would argue that I'm the best video game of recent times. And then clue 10.
Wrong.
I'm made by the same. Well, we can't. Obviously, Knack is up there as well, producer John. Nobody's taking Knack away from you. Right. In clue 10, I'm made by the same people who made Uncharted. So there we go. Another highly successful Simon's game, we call it, don't we? So that's 7-2. No, sorry, John, I hadn't quite finished. Now I finished.
Professionalism. Professionalism, we've heard of it.
as I was writing down the we have a history which I've just updated, and as I was writing down who won, I put my name. So it's not been the most successful.
You should win one. You never get to win any.
No, I think someone else should make the quiz and stuff. Like, I don't think I should have to do it. I'd quite like to.
Well, it is Simon's game. It wouldn't be right if someone else did it.
Do we know anyone else called Simon?
We get on a guest called Simon, but then the guest would probably win, so that would be perhaps a bit unfair.
What does Paul Simon do these days? Not much.
Fuck all.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got nothing better to do than appear on a middle of the gutter gaming podcast. Little throwback for you there. Okay, well, I guess it's time to wrap this up. I think it really is long since time. I'm like actually falling asleep a bit tonight. This is bad. So time to wrap up. So thanks for coming on, Kat. Always good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say I've had the pleasure, but thanks for attending the podcast, if nothing else.
Fuck you.
Again, like I said, haven't had the pleasure. So thanks for co-hosting, Simon. Thanks for producing, John.
Yeah.
And apologies to everyone for having to move this a day, because I imagine this is probably going to be out a day later than normal, yes. All down to my selfish wife deciding to have a baby and therefore having to have an antenatal class instead of a podcast. So yeah, that was that. Yeah.
So do we need to plug? You guys are on top of this, I'm sure. Do we need to plug the new thing?
Yes, I was going to mention this. Yes, the new thing. Well, I'll plug it a bit, seeing as it would sound a bit vain if John plugs it. But producer John is making his new thing called The Sticky Bit in the Middle, which is a short video segment. What's it, a couple of minutes, John?
Yes, the idea is that it is the antithesis of this podcast. It's video and it's very short.
Yeah, it's short, it's video, it's to the point, and nobody says the word penis. So yeah, it's very different to the podcast, but it's intended to sort of fill the lonely, gaping chasm that is the 2 weeks between each Balls on a Tray podcast, and that's the new thing. I think John's putting it on Facebook, yes. But I think we're hoping to get it on YouTube as well.
Yes, I'm going to sort out the YouTube channel, and hopefully we'll actually populate that with all of the podcast episodes retrospectively as we build as well.
Yes, it would be nice if we got the time to upload those, I think, because I think it's good for some people if you're sitting at a desktop machine or something, isn't it, to have it on YouTube in the background. Yeah. So maybe the listener would like to listen via YouTube, and perhaps we could double the listenership to 2.
Wow.
If we added YouTube, so that would be quite exciting. But yeah, do check out John's little video bit. It's kind of fun. A little bit about games, a little bit about techie stuff. Kind of a little bit different from the podcast, but
still there.
Hopefully along the same vibe.
Marvelous. Thank you.
Okay, so there we go. So that is producer John's Sticky Bit in the Middle, which is coming out every other week between the normal podcast. So if you got the podcast now, it should be out in about a week's time, I guess.
I dare say worth checking out just for the titles alone. Actually,
thank you.
You just like that little
if you're a fan of homemade Foley. Yeah.
And let's face it, who isn't? Right, okay, well, so yeah, let's wrap this up. So thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you again next time. Cheers.
I never got round to the story in VR chat about how my nickname is Penis Whore.